Behind the velvet ropes and golden gates, Hollywood's elite built dream homes that often veered into the downright bizarre. Some were brilliant, others were terrifying, and a few were simply disgusting. From heart-shaped pools to haunted hallways, these 21 celebrity mansions hid secrets even their owners didn't want you to know. Let's take a peek behind the curtains they tried to keep closed. 1. Jayne Mansfield. The Pink Palace. Jayne Mansfield didn't just live in a house. She ruled over a pink empire known as the Pink Palace. Tucked into 10,100 Sunset Boulevard, the house screamed excess in every way possible. Covered in bright bubblegum pink inside and out, the home reflected Mansfield's relentless desire to be seen, loved, and remembered as Hollywood's most flamboyant bombshell. Built in the 1920s and radically transformed in 1957 after Mansfield purchased it, the house featured a heart-shaped swimming pool with mosaic tiles spelling "I love you, Janie." Ceilings, carpets, phones, even the bathroom fixtures were painted pink. Her then-husband Mickey Hargitay, a former Mr. Universe, helped build a fountain that Mansfield famously filled with pink champagne for parties. But behind the Barbie Dreamhouse aesthetic was a life unraveling. Mansfield was fluent in 5 languages and played the violin. Yet the home reflected a woman desperately trying to outshine Marilyn Monroe. She added pink phones in every room to avoid missing calls from her often absent husband. The nursery, all pink, was where she taught her children multiple languages. As fame faded and finances crumbled, she refused to downsize. Instead, she converted parts of the home into a photo studio to keep up her lavish persona. Torn down in the early 2000s, the Pink Palace lives on as one of Hollywood's most bizarre shrines, equal parts fantasy, heartbreak, and obsession. 2. Errol Flynn, Mulholland Farm. Errol Flynn's Mulholland Farm wasn't a home. It was a grown-up's playground with a dark underbelly. Perched high in the Hollywood Hills, the 1940s estate had secret tunnels, hidden bedrooms, and a two-way mirror for spying on guests. It was Flynn's world of sword fights, seduction, and scandal, where fantasy and reality blurred dangerously. The home included a private pistol range, a custom bar, and an entire room filled with vitamin bottles, really just code for medicine to treat his declining health and alcoholism. Behind the charm of the swashbuckling Robin Hood star was a man descending into chaos. The FBI watched Flynn's estate due to his connection to Nazi sympathizer Hermann Urban, though no charges were ever filed. He opened the estate to war refugees and struggling actors, revealing an oddly generous side. But that didn't stop the mansion from becoming notorious. After his death, gospel singer Stuart Hamblin bought the home and discovered disturbing films hidden in compartments, some believed to be explicit recordings made secretly. Eventually demolished, Mulholland Farm became the physical manifestation of Flynn himself, bold, scandalous, and crumbling. It was a castle of secrets, where the golden age of Hollywood met its most debauched corners. Guests came expecting glamour. They often left disturbed. 3. Mae West, the Ravenswood apartment. While other stars flaunted massive mansions, Mae West chose a different kind of luxury, an apartment, but not just any apartment. The Ravenswood in Los Angeles became her ivory tower for 48 uninterrupted years. Don't let the word apartment fool you. This space was dripping in decadence, draped in white, and guarded by superstition. West's seashell-shaped bed was the crown jewel, flanked by mirrored walls and plush carpets. She filled the space with memorabilia, her bold costumes, film props, and framed fan letters. Yet, despite her persona as Hollywood's ultimate seductress, she led a surprisingly cloistered life. She rarely left and almost never allowed visitors into her private bedroom, a plain, unadorned contrast to her lavish public space. She kept psychics on speed dial and held spiritual cleansing rituals in the living room. After the 1929 stock market crash, she refused to trust banks and reportedly hid cash in the walls and beneath floorboards. Her Ravenswood sanctuary doubled as a writing studio, where she crafted the racy scripts that got her arrested for obscenity. She lived frugally yet fabulously, never moving as Hollywood evolved around her. Neighbors whispered about ghost sightings long after her death, claiming her energy never left. In the end, her apartment became more than a home. It was a fortress of independence. In a world that demanded conformity, Mae West built a private world that was unapologetically hers. 4. Howard Hughes. The Beverly Hills Fortress. Howard Hughes didn't live in a home. He built a labyrinth. His Beverly Hills estate, purchased in the 1920s, was less a mansion and more a living organism that evolved with his neuroses. Hidden behind towering hedges and guarded gates, the property became the physical embodiment of Hughes's brilliance and his unraveling mind. At its core was a custom-designed bedroom with a mechanized bed, years ahead of its time, crafted to ease the chronic pain he suffered from plane crash injuries. Elsewhere, entire wings of the house were converted into clean rooms with industrial air filters and strict sterilization protocols. He banned anyone from entering without gloves, terrified of germs long before OCD was properly understood. Yet, amid the paranoia, Hughes was innovating. He built a private airstrip nearby and a projection room where he would obsessively screen films frame by frame for days without sleep. He lived on a diet of chocolate bars and chicken soup, barely speaking to his staff. Despite this isolation, he used secret phone lines in his study to speak directly with U.S. presidents and powerful studio heads. Incredibly, Hughes still displayed unexpected kindness. He anonymously paid for medical procedures for staff and donated to charities he never acknowledged. But the deeper his mental illness grew, the more secret rooms and hidden passageways he added, until the house itself became a prison. When he finally left Beverly Hills, the estate was torn down. All that remained were rumors of what went on behind those soundproofed walls. 5. Dolores Del Rio. The Modernist Sanctuary. In an era when most stars flaunted ornate Spanish-style villas, Dolores Del Rio dared to live differently. Her Los Angeles home, designed in the 1920s by pioneering architect Richard Neutra, was sleek, minimal, and radically modern, just like her vision of art, culture, and identity. With open floor plans, massive glass walls, and clean lines, the home reflected Dolores's rejection of Hollywood stereotypes. As one of the first major Mexican actresses in American cinema, she was constantly pressured to conform to Anglo expectations. Instead, she filled her modernist retreat with Mexican folk art, indigenous textiles, and Aztec sculptures. Her home wasn't just a residence, it was a cultural declaration. Del Rio turned the estate into a hub for intellectuals and artists. Diego Rivera, Frida Kahlo, and Orson Welles dined there. During the Great Depression, she hosted underground civil rights meetings, supporting Mexican-American families facing deportation. She even kept a room filled with handwritten letters from Mexican children who saw her as a role model. The most private part of the home was a meditation room where she prayed beneath portraits of family members who'd perished in the Mexican Revolution. The space wasn't grand, but sacred. When her Hollywood career slowed, she returned to Mexico, leaving the house behind. Though later owners altered the property, architecture scholars still cite it as a turning point in California modernism. Dolores's home wasn't loud, but its quiet defiance still echoes, a reminder that beauty can be revolutionary. 6. Hedy Lamarr. The Inventor's Hideaway. Hedy Lamarr's Hollywood Hills home wasn't just glamorous, it was quietly brilliant. Most knew her as one of cinema's most breathtaking stars, but behind her elegant facade was a genius inventor, and her home reflected that double life. From the outside, it looked like a typical mid-century starlet's haven, but inside, it housed a secret workshop where Hedy and composer George Antheil developed frequency-hopping technology, a precursor to modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Lamarr's dining room often doubled as a makeshift lab, with blueprints strewn across the table and radio parts covering the counters. Born in Austria, Hedy had fled an abusive marriage to a Nazi arms dealer, arriving in Hollywood with nothing but jewels sewn into her clothes. Her home became her sanctuary. Hughes, recognizing her intellect, provided her with miniature aircraft models and equipment. She installed a specialized drafting table in her study and built a concealed soundproof room to brainstorm without interruption. Her workshop was off-limits to most, a space she protected more fiercely than her jewelry. Even studio executives who visited were unaware that scientific breakthroughs were unfolding just steps away from the pool. Despite inventing revolutionary technology, she received little credit in her lifetime. But in that house, Hetty found purpose. As she once told her son, "Movies paid the bills. Invention fed my soul." The home is gone now, but her legacy lives on in every smartphone, router, and GPS signal. Her mansion may have been hidden from fame, but her genius could not be contained. 7. Clark Gable. The Encino Ranch. Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood, didn't seek glittering excess like many of his peers. Instead, he built a sanctuary of solitude, a 20-acre ranch in Encino, tucked deep in the San Fernando Valley. While he lit up the screen as Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, Gable's off-screen world was rooted in dirt roads, horse trails, and quiet sunsets. Purchased in 1939 with actress Carole Lombard, the property boasted modest architecture but rich personal meaning. Gable wasn't one for showmanship here. He rode horses, fixed his own farm equipment, and kept a workshop where he built rustic furniture by hand. Visitors were surprised to find no grand chandeliers or opulent furnishings, just hunting trophies, work boots by the door, and Civil War books stacked beside his favorite chair. But the ranch became a haunted place after Lombard's tragic death in a plane crash. Gable left her closet untouched for the rest of his life and enlisted in the Army Air Forces soon after, perhaps seeking danger to numb his grief. When he returned, the ranch was the only place he found peace. He maintained a hidden library filled with poetry and war literature, and even built a small ivy-covered cottage where he'd escape to memorize scripts or simply sit with his thoughts. After his death, staff discovered detailed journals tracking the health of every plant and animal on the property. Gable's Encino Ranch wasn't designed to impress. It was a retreat for a man shaped by hardship, fame, and devastating loss. In the heart of booming Los Angeles, he carved out a corner of stillness that whispered of simpler times. 8. Rudolph Valentino. Falcon Lair. Perched high in the Beverly Crest Hills, Rudolph Valentino's Falcon Lair wasn't just a mansion, it was a legend wrapped in myth. Built in the 1920s and named after his film The Hooded Falcon, this estate was Valentino's grand rebuttal to the rumors swirling around his private life. With its medieval-style arches, vast terraces, and lush Italian gardens, Falcon Lair radiated masculinity and European opulence. Inside, he filled rooms with antique weaponry, Gothic decor, and rare volumes in 4 languages. The home included a lavish gym, a chapel-like meditation room, and a personal library where he escaped his public image as Hollywood's Latin lover. But Falcon Lair also carried heartbreak. Valentino died just months after moving in, suddenly at age 31, from peritonitis. The estate became a site of pilgrimage, with fans leaving flowers at the gates for years. Rumors swirled that Valentino believed the home was cursed. Some even claimed to see his ghost pacing the hallways. Perhaps the most intimate space was his herb garden. There, he planted Italian rosemary, basil, and fennel, hoping to recreate the tastes of his childhood in Puglia. He even trained his Doberman Kabar to guard the estate, a dog that, according to legend, howled at the gates for days after his master's death. The home was eventually demolished in the early 2000s, but its memory endures. Falcon Lair wasn't just a mansion, it was the embodiment of a man torn between fame and identity, desperately building a fortress that could contain both. 9. Jean Harlow. Benedict Canyon House. Jean Harlow's Benedict Canyon home looked elegant on the outside, but inside it carried an air of eerie tragedy. Bought in 1932, the white stucco house in Beverly Hills became infamous after the sudden death of her husband, Paul Byrne, in the upstairs bathroom under suspicious circumstances. Suicide was the official cause, but Hollywood whispered darker theories. Despite her platinum blonde bombshell image, Harlow lived quietly. The home included a modest library where she read books on science and philosophy, subjects MGM executives never wanted the public to associate with her. Her relationship with her controlling mother added tension to the atmosphere, and Harlow's health steadily declined, exacerbated by toxic hair treatments required to maintain her signature look. Most heartbreaking was the nursery she secretly prepared in hopes of having a child. Plans tragically cut short when she died of kidney failure at just 26. Her death only deepened the home's haunted reputation. Later, owners reported ghost sightings, unexplained cold spots, and eerie sounds at night. Even celebrity hairstylist Jay Sebring, one-time resident, spoke of unsettling energy in the house. The most haunting discovery came after her death, a hidden journal where she wrote of her chronic pain and fatigue, masking it all with a smile because that's my job. A separate room in the house was filled with notes and gifts exchanged between Harlow and William Powell, the man she truly loved but never lived with. The house still stands today, but its shadowy history remains, a chilling contrast to the luminous star who once called it home. 10th. Harold Lloyd. Green Acres. Harold Lloyd wasn't just a comedic daredevil, he was also the creator of one of the most over-the-top estates in silent film history, Green Acres. Built in the 1920s in Beverly Hills, the 44-room mansion sat on 15 acres and featured a private zoo, a 9-hole golf course, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Yet the most remarkable part of Green Acres wasn't its size, it was its secrets. Lloyd lost 2 fingers in a prop bomb accident in 1919, a fact he kept hidden from the public. Green Acres quietly accommodated his disability. Every doorknob, faucet, and drawer was customized for one-handed use. He even designed a glove with a prosthetic hand that allowed him to perform stunts without audiences ever knowing. But Green Acres was also a multimedia lab. One entire wing housed a 3D photography studio where Lloyd captured over 300,000 stereoscopic images of Hollywood's most candid moments. The home included a theater with specialized seating for children from local orphanages, whom Lloyd hosted for weekly screenings, an act of quiet charity he never publicized. As silent films faded, Lloyd struggled financially, selling off pieces of the estate until only the main house remained. But Green Acres stood as more than a monument to wealth. It was a symbol of creativity, resilience, and hidden kindness. In a world obsessed with talkies, Lloyd found ways to keep silent wonders alive. 11. Buster Keaton. The Italian Villa on Pamela Drive. Buster Keaton's 20-room Beverly Hills villa at 108 Pamela Drive was part Roman fantasy, part tragic time capsule. Built in the 1920s, the estate featured a trout stream, a Roman-style swimming pool, and even an aviary. But for Keaton, the home wasn't just a place to live. It was his creative playground. One of the villa's standout features was a hidden bar that transformed into a screening room with the flick of a switch. Keaton, a pioneer of physical comedy and practical effects, treated the home like an extension of his stage. He even installed a trapdoor in the garden gazebo for impromptu magic tricks. But the magic faded quickly. Financial ruin hit hard after he signed away creative control to MGM alcoholism, and a devastating divorce forced him to sell the estate after just 10 months. Keaton wept openly the day he left. The playroom he'd built for his sons was left untouched, a heartbreaking monument to a family life that unraveled. Years later, actor James Mason discovered a vault in the garage filled with Keaton's long-lost films, preserving a chunk of silent cinema history that otherwise may have vanished. Though the house is long gone, the story of Keaton's villa still haunts film historians. It was a mansion of joy, invention, and heartbreak, a home built by a genius who couldn't stop the world from changing around him. 12. Marion Davies, Ocean House, the Beach House. Marion Davies' seaside estate in Santa Monica, known formally as Ocean House but often called the Beach House, was less a home and more a personal kingdom. Built in the 1920s with financial backing from her powerful partner William Randolph Hearst, the mansion was a 100-room monument to opulence with 55 bathrooms, 37 fireplaces, and a 110-foot pool surrounded by imported marble statues. Davies was the life of Hollywood parties, hosting guests like Winston Churchill and Charlie Chaplin. But the estate also symbolized the constraints she lived under. Though often labeled merely as Hearst's mistress, She was deeply involved in the property's construction, showcasing a surprising flair for architectural planning. Behind the grand facade, she turned several rooms into a makeshift hospital after the 1933 Long Beach earthquake, personally. Tending to the injured, a hidden room with enhanced acoustics allowed her to practice speaking, part of her lifelong struggle to overcome a stutter that the public never knew about. During Prohibition, the enormous wine cellar stayed stocked thanks to Hearst's political connections, though Davies herself barely drank. One of the estate's most touching secrets was a free children's clinic she funded on site for underprivileged local families, something she never publicized. When Hearst's financial empire crumbled in the 1930s, the estate was slowly dismantled. By the 1950s, the main house was demolished. Only the guest house and the pool remain, now part of the Annenberg Community Beach House. But its legacy, one of quiet charity, hidden insecurities, and lavish contradictions, still whispers in the waves. 13. Mary Pickford. Pickfair Mary Pickford's estate, Pickfair, wasn't just a home. It was the beating heart of early Hollywood royalty. Nestled in Beverly Hills and shared with husband Douglas Fairbanks, this 42-room mansion became the symbol of glamour and status. From Amelia Earhart to Albert Einstein, Pickfair's guest list read like a who's who of 20th century greatness. Built in the 1920s, the Tudor-style mansion featured wood-paneled libraries, grand staircases, and a projection room where Pickford obsessively re-watched her silent films late at night. But the home was more than a social hub. It was a private world where Pickford battled inner demons. Despite being America's sweetheart, Mary was haunted by trauma. After her divorce from Fairbanks, she withdrew from public life and rarely left the mansion. One room remained a nursery for children she never had, a symbol of maternal dreams sacrificed to career ambitions. She tracked every expense in ledgers locked in multiple safes scattered throughout the property. Despite incredible wealth, she feared poverty, a scar left from her childhood after her father's death. Perhaps most heart-wrenching was a hidden shrine in Fairbanks's old dressing room, untouched until her death. Though their love story had ended, she never let go. In the 1990s, singer Pia Zadora purchased the estate and controversially demolished it, citing termites and hauntings. Film historians mourned its loss as the destruction of a landmark, but the name Pickfair still evokes images of a lost Hollywood, where stardom was born, but vulnerability was carefully hidden behind stone walls. 14. Douglas Fairbanks, Fairbanks Ranch, Santa Monica Estate. Douglas Fairbanks, Hollywood's original action hero, didn't just perform daring stunts on screen, he built them into his home life too. While Pickfair was his public kingdom, Fairbanks Ranch, his lesser-known Santa Monica estate, served as his personal playground and refuge from fame. The ranch boasted manicured gardens, a private lake, and an elaborate obstacle course based on the stunts in his own films. Fairbanks designed his own gym filled with handmade exercise equipment that predated modern machines. He was obsessed with youth, often seen sprinting across the grounds in full costume, rehearsing fight choreography for fun. Yet beneath the vibrant athleticism was a man plagued by fear, of aging, of irrelevance, and of his declining health. Diagnosed with high blood pressure in his 30s, Fairbanks used the estate's physical challenges as a way to self-medicate, avoiding doctors and shunning pharmaceuticals. He had a hidden study where he kept journals and wrote poetry, personal melancholic works that no one ever saw during his lifetime. A tunnel connected the main house to the boathouse, which he often used to escape from press or even his wife Mary Pickford when their marriage crumbled. Fairbanks also installed a shortwave radio to communicate with explorers around the world, living vicariously through their adventures as his own grew fewer. After his divorce, he spent long periods alone at the ranch, watching his earlier films in the private screening room and mourning the stunts he could no longer perform. Eventually, the property was sold and subdivided, but the stories of that obstacle course and secret tunnel remain. Fairbanks may have been a symbol of eternal youth, but his estate tells a far more human tale of strength, loneliness, and fading glory. 15. John Barrymore. Bella Vista Estate. John Barrymore's Bella Vista estate in Beverly Hills was a Gothic masterpiece that mirrored the tortured genius who lived inside. Nicknamed the Great Profile, Barrymore was known for his Shakespearean gravitas and extravagant lifestyle, and Bella Vista was his lair, a sprawling mansion filled with secrets, shadows, and a surprising pet vulture named Maloney. Built in the 1920s, the estate featured a towering private library with rare books and medieval manuscripts, many hidden behind trick panels and sliding bookshelves. Barrymore would vanish into this library for days, drinking and reading aloud passages from Hamlet or Othello to an empty room, sometimes just to his pet monkey or parrot. He added a small theater to the property where he'd stage private performances for a handful of guests, often in full costume, wine glass in hand. Despite his public image as a rakish charmer, Barrymore was deeply intellectual. He even converted part of the estate into an art studio for his intricate ink drawings, many of which still survive. His health collapsed in the 1930s, and so did his finances. Barrymore was eventually forced to sell Bella Vista, a moment that crushed him emotionally. The home changed hands several times before it was eventually demolished, but legends about secret bookcases, eccentric animal guests, and late-night Shakespeare still swirl around the property. Bella Vista wasn't just a mansion, it was a haunted theater for one of Hollywood's most tragic stars. 16. William Randolph Hearst, San Simeon, Hearst Castle. William Randolph Hearst's estate, famously known as San Simeon or Hearst Castle, wasn't merely a mansion, it was a monument to obsession. Located on California's Central Coast, construction began in 1919 and continued for nearly 3 decades. The final result? A 165-room palace sprawling across 90,000 square feet, complete with a zoo, 2 swimming pools, and entire rooms shipped from European castles. But what made San Simeon truly strange was the man behind it. Hearst, a media titan, suffered from overwhelming social anxiety despite his commanding public persona. He built hidden corridors and secret viewing rooms so he could observe guests without being seen. One of his favorite tricks was disappearing mid-party, slipping through trap doors or secret staircases to avoid interaction. The main outdoor Neptune pool was lined with real gold tiles. Indoors, the Roman pool glistened like a Byzantine cathedral. He slept not in the master suite, but in a modest room known as the monk's cell. Sparse, unadorned, and intentionally plain, a shocking contrast to the palace that surrounded it. A compulsive collector, Hearst bought thousands of art pieces, some never even unpacked, cluttering massive storage warehouses in both California and New York. His pet zebras roamed the hills freely, remnants of the estate's private zoo. Guests like Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, and Winston Churchill marveled at the estate, yet few understood that it masked a mind teetering between brilliance and madness. Today, San Simeon is a public museum, but the ghost of its creator still lingers in its overwhelming silence. It was more than just a house. It was a kingdom forged by power, haunted by loneliness, and designed to control every inch of its reality. 17. Charlie Chaplin, Beverly Hills Cottage. Charlie Chaplin, one of the most iconic faces of silent cinema, lived in a surprisingly modest Beverly Hills home that concealed theatrical secrets and political fear. Built in the 1920s, the house reflected his humble roots. Nothing extravagant, yet filled with personality. But it held something more intriguing, a secret tunnel leading to a hidden wine cellar. Chaplin used the tunnel for everything from dodging paparazzi to hosting clandestine soirees, away from prying eyes. In the backyard stood a miniature stage where he rehearsed scenes for city lights in modern times. Inside, the decor remained frozen in time, unchanged 1920s furnishings and playful sculptures that reflected his childlike whimsy. But the home became a fortress during Hollywood's Red Scare. As one of the highest-profile targets of McCarthyism, Chaplin used the estate to shelter from political persecution. FBI agents surveilled the home, suspecting communist ties, and eventually, he was barred from re-entering the U.S. after a European trip. Behind the charm was a man deeply scarred by poverty. Chaplin had grown up in workhouses and witnessed his mother's mental illness firsthand. These traumas showed up in his obsessive need for control, Every item in the house was meticulously placed, every window draped the same way. He rarely entertained large crowds, preferring quiet evenings with close friends like Albert Einstein or Paulette Goddard. A private garden featured whimsical statues and fountains, a world he created to counter the chaos of his past. Though now privately owned, Chaplin's former home remains a powerful reminder that even the biggest stars need a place to hide, to mourn, and to imagine. 18. Cary Grant, The Modest Beverly Hills Hideaway. Cary Grant, the epitome of on-screen sophistication, lived not in a grand palace, but in a discreet, walled Beverly Hills hideaway. Unlike many of his peers, Grant's home was intentionally understated. Behind the tall hedges was a serene garden, winding paths, and a study lined with worn books, not awards. Built in the 1930s, the house featured quiet elegance rather than flashy wealth. Grant preferred small gatherings over celebrity galas, inviting just a handful of close friends for quiet meals or private film screenings. His decor leaned toward the whimsical, reflecting a wry wit that rarely showed in interviews. Born Archibald Leach in Bristol, England, Grant ran away from home at 13 to join an acrobatic troupe. He never forgot his working-class roots. Inside a display cabinet in the study were childhood circus keepsakes, his true trophies. He never finished school, and his insecurity over this led him to create a hidden library filled with history, art, and philosophy books annotated in his own hand. Grant also struggled privately with identity and self-worth. After his death, journals revealed his deep-seated self-doubt, including the famous line, "Everyone wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant." The home included a secret meditation room where he practiced yoga and mindfulness long before such things were fashionable. After becoming a father in his 60s, he converted part of the home into a child's playroom and read every parenting book he could find. Dozens were discovered heavily underlined and dog-eared. His Beverly Hills home, modest on the outside and rich with inner life, remains a poignant contradiction to the suave icon we thought we knew. 19th. Greta Garbo, Manhattan Apartment Sanctuary. Greta Garbo, the Swedish-born screen goddess, famously declared, "I want to be alone," and she lived those words with chilling precision in her East 52nd Street apartment in New York City. After retiring from film at age 35, Garbo vanished from Hollywood and retreated into a 5-room sanctuary that few ever saw. The apartment was tastefully decorated with Swedish antiques, oriental rugs, and world-class artwork from Renoir and Bonnard. Garbo carefully curated the space to reflect quiet elegance, not celebrity wealth. Mirrors were placed strategically so she could see anyone approaching without being spotted herself. Though reclusive, Garbo wasn't cold. She kept a tight circle of friends who were allowed in for low-key dinners and philosophical conversations. She even hosted silent film screenings on a small projector, seated on the floor in thick wool socks. Garbo meticulously tracked every expense in tiny notebooks. She darned her own clothes, reused envelopes, and cooked simple meals herself. Though worth millions, she lived like a middle-class intellectual. Notably absent were any mementos from her acting career. No awards, no film stills. Her bookshelves were filled instead with texts on Buddhism, existentialism, and world history. Garbo's neighbors often saw her walking the city in disguises, oversized sunglasses, men's coats, scarves. She navigated the streets like a spy, committed to anonymity. In her final years, she developed a small garden on the balcony where she'd prune roses and listen to classical records alone. After her death in 1990, the apartment was sold almost exactly as she'd left it. To step inside was to enter a living museum of isolation and elegance, a fortress for a woman who spent her life guarding what few ever truly saw: her peace. 20th. Walt Disney. The Carolwood Estate. Walt Disney built entire worlds from imagination, so it's no surprise his personal home was equally magical. Nestled on Carolwood Drive in Holmby Hills, the 3.6-acre Carolwood Estate was a wonderland disguised as a family home. Its crown jewel? A fully functioning 1/8 scale steam railroad, the Carolwood Pacific Railroad, that wrapped around the property. Complete with trestles, tunnels, and a 46-foot-long bridge, the Backyard Railroad wasn't just a toy. It was a prototype for Disneyland's transportation system. Disney personally engineered each feature, even building a miniature engine house where he hosted late-night steam-ups for guests like Salvador Dali and Ward Kimball. Inside the house, Disney had a room called the Laughing Place, a workshop where he tinkered with mechanical toys, animatronics, and maquettes. This private lab was the testing ground for inventions that would later populate Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion. But not all was whimsical. After multiple miscarriages, Walt and his wife Lillian adopted their daughter Sharon. He built a custom children's wing in the house with hidden doors, fairy tale murals, and secret crawl spaces. Dreams made real for the child he once feared he'd never have. Despite his ruthless business persona, Walt was warm at home. He cooked Sunday breakfast himself, gardened with his staff, and banned business talk at the dinner table. Executives, animators, and janitors all mingled equally at backyard barbecues. After Walt's death in 1966, the estate was sold and the railroad dismantled. But train enthusiasts still visit the site, honoring the spot where a man's imagination once ran full steam ahead. Literally. 21. Gloria Swanson, Casa del Sol. Gloria Swanson's Beverly Hills mansion, Casa del Sol, was a radiant temple of excess that mirrored her dramatic screen persona. Built in the 1920s, the Spanish Moorish estate sparkled with tile mosaics, exotic antiques, and one truly bizarre addition, her own private chapel, complete with stained glass windows and velvet pews. Swanson made $8 million between 1918 and 1929, an astronomical sum, and poured much of it into this mansion, which was both a residence and a stage. Parties were legendary. Guests were dazzled by secret passageways, gold leaf ceilings, and a hidden meditation chamber where she consulted astrologers and mystics. But beneath the glitz was desperation. She feared irrelevance and poured money into maintaining appearances as her film career waned. The estate's hidden room, once thought to be a prayer space, doubled as a meeting spot for her secret affair with Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., father of JFK, who posed publicly as her financial advisor. Swanson was ahead of her time, installing water purification systems and following a strict vegetarian diet when both were unheard of in Hollywood. Part of her home was converted into a makeshift wellness center complete with infrared lamps and herbal medicine cabinets. Eventually, the cost of maintaining Casa del Sol broke her. Financial pressures forced her to sell, and the house was later demolished. All that remains today are grainy photos and whispered stories. But the legend of Casa del Sol lives on, a glittering, ghostly reminder of a woman who made herself a queen in a kingdom built entirely by her own will. These weren't just mansions. They were mirrors. Mirrors reflecting Hollywood's most private obsessions, fears, and fantasies. Some inspired wonder, others whispered tragedy, and a few still raise goosebumps. Behind every golden smile, there's a story the camera never caught. Subscribe for more strange tales, because in Hollywood, the houses talk if you dare to listen.